So Dana Spaulding, first of all, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, and who were some of your early influences, and did you know what you wanted to do professionally from a young age?
So I grew up on the East Coast. I went to school in New York City, and I actually chose the college that I went to because it had such a strong performing arts school as well as a business school. So for me, business was pretty secondary. It was more of like the backup plan if arts doesn't work out because I was a dancer and planned to dance professionally. Absolutely loved it. And so really only considered going to New York where I could explore both avenues. And for me, the business school was really influenced by my dad. He was an entrepreneur. And so I was like, okay, if I don't follow the dancing path, then probably something in business like my father might make sense. And for me, it was just such an amazing experience going to school in New York and having these parallel paths and exploring both at that period of time in my life. And ultimately decided to keep dance largely because of some injuries and other related things, kept dance as the hobby. And also I had explored internships with finance companies and actually really liked them. It surprised me how much I liked them and how much opportunity and excitement I saw there. And so kept dance as a hobby, pursued finance, and so spent my time at JP Morgan. And that was really interesting to me because, like I said, I liked it a lot. It was in asset management, and that really was where I saw myself going for my entire career. Spent about a decade there, and what influenced me there was my particular role was within the private bank at JP Morgan, which meant I was managing assets for ultra successful entrepreneurs that would go through some kind of exit, and then my team and I would manage it for them. And I was really fortunate in the later years of my time at JP Morgan. I covered food and beverage entrepreneurs, and it was just so exciting managing folks in that space. They influenced me and inspired me so much that I wanted to be on the other side of the table and build something that was really influential for me.
Okay, yeah. So then there was a natural progression then into that particular industry, having covered it.
Yeah, there was. It felt, for my day job was getting to know these entrepreneurs and getting to know their journey from early days through exit. And what that meant for me was oftentimes going to the trade shows and meeting them where they were at. And so I felt immersed in this world, and I really knew I wanted to do something within food and beverage. I really wasn't sure what it was until my husband asked me that question of, are you really going to waste another bottle of wine? And we were always throwing out ideas of, what type of food and beverage company could we maybe lean into. And it really was this idea that was the first one that I thought, there are so many gaps in the market here that I really want to take the leap and give it a shot.
Okay, so you knew then that you wanted to get into the food and beverage industry, and then you identified which product it was early on. So it wasn't like, oh, I tried this concept, tried this, and then ultimately landed on this one. This was your original idea from the get-go when you wanted to do something entrepreneurship.
It was the very first idea was around not creating something that wasn't going to be wasteful, because my husband had asked me if I was going to waste wine. And he asked me that because I love to have one great glass of wine. He loves to have whiskey. And so he was watching me often throw away wine bottles because I would have a glass, and then 3 or 4 or 5 days later, I'd find myself throwing away wine. He said, okay, we need to do something a little different. And I had explored the market. And what I found was it was really low quality wines in packaging that to me didn't feel like a luxury in any way. And so that really got me excited about the idea of bringing a premium wine in a premium package to consumers like me who are looking for it. And then once I learned more about the wine specific space, I learned uh, how little of a focus there was on clean organic ingredients. And so for me, I found, like I said, so many gaps where there was no premium wine or package, and also such a little focus on clean organic ingredients, that if I could do something that checked all those boxes, it would be so differentiated. And honestly, I felt like if I was going to step away from my quite comfortable, high salaried gig that I'd worked really hard for almost a decade, I felt like I needed to do it for something that was truly differentiated and that really had a chance. And so to your To your question, there weren't like a variety of other things that I tested. It was really like, let's really dig into the one core product that I think will have the capacity to change the market.
Okay, so you knew what you wanted to do. You obviously had the background in it, and the investment banking side, working in that industry, but not necessarily having your own brand or company. So,
Right.
did having those connections help at the beginning? And like, what was the first step? Okay, you got the aha moment, but how do you put this, um, sort of individual device that you have to serve wine? Like, how do you start? How do you start with the concept and to go from concept to like actual product or prototype, and then get funding and go from there? Like, what were the first steps? And also, were you nervous jumping from that, high salary, safe job like you had, and becoming an entrepreneur, and taking that initial step?
Yeah. So you know what's funny? Today is actually my husband kindly refers to it as resignation day because it's 8 years ago I resigned, and it was a big deal. Like we remember it, we celebrate it because I was terrified, like absolutely terrified to do something so new, so risky. He was so supportive, which was incredibly helpful, my husband. But the process, I would say, was probably a year and a half to 2 years from idea to launch and market. The first 6 months after having the idea for me was really building out some sort of sketch of a business model as to what this could look like, ensuring financially we were going to be okay, of totally wiping out a salary, to taking it, didn't take a salary for the first couple of years. And so, financially making sure we were ready. So building the financial plan, building the actual business model sketch. And for me, what was really helpful, I think you had asked me, was that community helpful? And it really was, because I care, you have to be careful, I think, of having that conversation with folks who you're managing wealth, for folks who very much trust you. But for, my dearest friends in the community, who consisted of food and beverage entrepreneurs, I was able to share the idea. And actually, I initially shared it with them saying, here's what I think I'm going to start on the side. And what do you think? And I was really just picking their brains on, if I started this on the side, what do you think? And I had so many of those entrepreneurs tell me, not only it was a good idea, but if I don't dive in full force, not just do it part time, full force immediately, someone else will do it and they'll do it better. So you probably should go to the races today. And that lit a fire under me to say, okay, this is a good idea. I should put everything I have behind it, because all of the trends were going in this direction. Um, and then today, like I said, today, 8 years ago, I left. And from there, I was really, really fortunate to have, it actually surprised the heck out of me that I was so nervous to tell my clients the news. And several of them said, call me when you need funding. And I didn't even know what I needed funding for at that moment. Like it was like day one, I hadn't even left. And so I actually was proud of myself for saying, let me get back to you. And I took, like, truly probably 3 to 4 months of actually even building a deck of what funding would go towards versus just taking a check. And so I was really thoughtful around initial fundraising, what it would look like, got as much advice as I possibly could, financial, legal, compliance, all of that, and building an alcohol company in a very heavily regulated industry. And took an additional year plus to raise the funds and launch. And your question of, how did I get this? Our package is so different. it's
Yeah, yeah,
it's different in the category, which we are so proud of. But with that comes a lot of challenges, because there hasn't been a lot of innovation in the wine industry. And so when I went out to seek partners who have wine bottling lines, when I asked, if they were willing to partner, most every single person not only told me no, but said, you'll never be able to do it. Like, that is just so different. You'll never be able to get quality wine inside that package. Like, you're crazy. And though it was discouraging at times, it more ignited a fire to say, this is so different. We can change a category. There's been no innovation here. I just got to find the right partner. So it took me a while, but ultimately found the right partner to modify existing bottling lines to get here, to fill our very unique bottle. And we've made a lot of iterations along the way, and now actually have our own Water 90 bottling line, but it took years to get there. And it really was about finding the right partners, not getting too discouraged by so many people who told me you can't do it. I said there's probably, a reason why this is going to be successful, because so many people are unwilling to do the hard thing and do such new innovations. And so once we found the right partners, we were able to at least launch initially and market to get that proof of concept.
And was your original concept also to source your own wine to put in this unique serving? I don't know what you call it. It's not a glass, right? It's not a bottle. Well, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
it's a bottle. Um, but like, did you at any point think, oh, maybe I just come up with the actual like bottle itself and then license it to other wineries, maybe some of these other like huge wineries, and just that's your business there. And how important was it to actually have your own sourced wine, organic wine, family wine, which we can talk about, in that bottle itself. So have it be the complete package. So not just the unique bottle design, but also what's inside.
It's a great question. It wasn't originally something that I had asked myself, would I be willing to sell or license the bottle? It's patented, which is something that we're really proud of. But I got the question along the way. Once I realized so many people were very interested in a bottle of the shape, I got more inquiries from the larger groups, like you're mentioning, of, oh, would you license it? So I started getting more and more questions over the last couple of years versus building a brand. And a couple of things. One, I've learned personally how much I love, like, building the brand is one of actually my personal favorite things to do. And I've learned how important our story is for our consumers, and also how as a consumer of so many other products, how much I connect with the story behind something I'm using. And so for me, the story behind Wander and Ivy and building the brand and being a part of it and feeling so authentic and genuine to me has been something that is really meaningful for me. And I do think sets brands apart. It's that intangible piece that it's hard to quantify, it's hard to measure, but really provides a lot of value to what we're building. And that piece is important to me. And also it wasn't my intention initially, and still isn't today, although I'm always humbled by the question, to get it out everywhere, just the bottle in every winery leveraging this. What I'm excited about is actually having Wander and Ivy in, every hotel, as we're building our hotel presence in every retailer. And I have seen and learned more and more how much our consumer, in particular our target demographic, is so connected with the story behind it. And I've also learned how challenging it is, as I touched on, to bottle something so unique in this package. And our bottling line is a multi-million dollar line that's made for our bottle and really allows for the highest quality wine inside the bottle. So I personally feel like no one else can do it quite like us today. And my goal is to scale the brand. That being said, I'm always humbled, and I love when people say, would you license it out? But it really, it's something that I'm honored by, but way more excited to build the Wander and Ivy brand.
Yeah, because I feel like, you'd have to, I assume you essentially have your own lines for your own particular product. It's not like you go out and find a co-packer and say, hey, I'll select this bottle with this product or what have you. And, you contract with them and they do it and you got your business and you promote the brand, the marketing side of what it might be. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, so I would imagine that just adds a whole new layer to being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. So were there any like steps? Were there any like roadblocks along the way that you hit, or things that you might have been surprised about along that journey from starting this particular company and brand, and the amount of like different steps into the process to get it out to get it out to consumers?
I knew fundraising was challenging, but I would say I didn't realize how little went to female founders. And that was eye-opening to me. It was, I was in finance, but I certainly wasn't in venture capital. And so learning that 2 to 3% of all funding goes to female founders was quite interesting. I knew that our business early days was going to be capital intensive. I knew it was going to be an investor backed business because of how capital intensive it is. And at the same time, once fundraising, it was interesting and it's evolved, but not nearly as much as it hopefully will continue to evolve. Every room that I presented to from an investor standpoint was not my target demographic. It was all male. And as much as I love men, and my husband drinks my wine sometimes more than I do, older male demographics
Yeah.
are not our core demographic, is not our core demographic. And so I found it challenging to present a brand that, when sharing it with our target demographic, they not only love but were obsessed with. And then I would go into another, investor room, and it would be full of men, and they just wouldn't get it. I often heard very early on the question of, who doesn't finish a bottle of wine? I drink a bottle of wine every night, and like, who doesn't do that? And so, when you have that mindset, it is hard to convince that there's a lot of data to show drinking in moderation is the path of the future. And quality wine inside a quality package. So that for me was really hard, because I felt like a group of people and a whole demographic that loved what we were doing. But the investor community, it took some time to really get them on board. I'm so proud. And I have an incredible cap table of investors, many of which were my former clients in food and beverage, which I'm so honored about. But it took some time. It really had to be super data driven, and because they didn't get it immediately. I really needed to present all of the data to demonstrate it and really get them to believe, I found, in me, because at the beginning, that's what they're betting on, right? The person to
Yeah.
execute this. So they had to believe in the mission, in the product, but ultimately that I could execute. So really finding that confidence within myself, I found to be really important.
Okay. And on the sourcing side, talk about some of the vineyards that you work with to partner with, and how do you source them? And, like you touched a little bit upon this on the health aspect of it, because they're organic grapes, and you work with family farms, and how it's important, like, sustainability and B Corps and that sort of thing. How do you source them? And just talk about that whole process.
Yeah. So when we built out the universe of suppliers that we would consider sourcing from, they needed to check certain boxes. And you touched on many of them, of certified organic, recognized by the USDA, which I learned was, every country around the world has their own definitions of what organic means. There's a lot of overlaps, but for us, it really needed to check a lot of the restrictions of the USDA. And it also, I really wanted family owned vineyards to really have that high quality family touch, again, to the story behind the wine that they were delivering. And it all really, for me, needed to be in a price range that would ultimately get it on the shelf, or get it shipped to their door at an affordable price point. My goal was delivering this affordable everyday luxury that you could treat yourself to. So couldn't be, $1,000 bottles of wine ultimately that we were getting. They really needed to be of the price point, and internationally recognized in some way, really already being acclaimed in some way around the world. And I was really looking for varietals, specific varietals that are highly demanded, the top demanded varietals in the United States, and then looking for the wine regions around the world where they're most known for. So, for example, a rosé from the south of France, a cab and Chardonnay from California, largely because our bottle is very exploratory. Or I would say even any single serve packaging, especially ours, when you look at it, it's very exploratory. I wanted the varietal and the region that it was sourced from to be really recognizable and comfortable for consumers, saying, okay, I want a Chard from California tonight. Okay, I'll give Juan and Ivy a shot. This is a beautiful package. I want to give this a shot. Versus there are many grape varietals that are a lot less known, and a consumer might feel hesitant to take a shot on. And so, those buckets were the ones that we checked in terms of, like, okay, do the vineyards around the world check these boxes? And if so, then my team and I would go through a tasting process and also an analytics process to make sure, for example, from a technical standpoint, it didn't have too high of dissolved oxygen, or, all the quality of the wine. It was such high quality. And if we loved the taste, if the analytics hit, if they checked all the other boxes, then we decided to bring them on. And what's so amazing is that most of our varietals and the exact suppliers have been the same for the last 4 or 5 years. So our goal is to bring consistency to our consumers, and every year, based on their demand, bring one or two new vintages and varietals to them.
Okay. And do you have a particular favorite of your own, or is it is it like your
You know,
children where they're all my favorite?
I know people ask me that all the time. They all are my
Or each
babies,
day of the
but
week you have a different favorite, right?
I
That's how
know,
it
yeah, you
works.
could. I mean,
7
pick
varieties
one.
every day. That's
I
why
love
they're
that.
single serve.
So exactly, I love that. For me, I gravitate most towards our red blend. From the beginning, I tend to say that that is my favorite. It has been what I love is just that it's been the exact same since founding the business. I love that it's a mix of Merlot and Bobal, which is really cool. All like I said, we really focus on these well-known grapes. Red blend is something that's very recognizable. So it says red wine blend, but the actual mix within it is Bobal and Merlot. And Merlot is so known. Characteristics of it are so recognizable. But Bobal, most people are actually, especially in the United States, not familiar with it. And I think it gives it this really cool blend. It's a little chocolatey, little spice on top of the Merlot. It's ultra dry. All of our wines have 0 grams of sugar, so all of our wines are dry. And I'm also Italian, and so I feel like it goes so well with Italian food. And like whether it's a casual night of pizza and you just want one great glass, or pasta, so it just goes so well with that. But I adore all of them, and we have 5 varietals, so it's a select group of global lineup. But the red blend's probably my favorite.
And do you have like days where like you're tasting at the office with your staff, or is it sometimes just you and your friends hanging out on Friday night, tasting some of these new varieties to bring in?
It's funny. So my husband always jokes, "Oh, you're gonna be up there drinking," because we literally like never drink during the day. But when we do drink, and I say that because we actually are a primarily remote team, and so when we do any kind of tastings, we'll typically the process is our winemaker in California and myself on the East Coast, and I have our CMO in like middle of the U.S. in Colorado, and so when we're tasting we'll oftentimes do them individually, take our own notes. And I've actually found over the years it's helpful to not get influenced by feedback when everyone's, because it's hard not to take a sip and go, oh my gosh, that's amazing, or ooh, I don't like that. And everybody's palate's different. But I have found it to be interesting and helpful to have individual tastings for our executive team and winemaker, and provide our individual feedback. And then collectively we'll come together and share that feedback and do it side by side with the analytical analysis to say, okay, does this check the boxes? Do we want to move forward? But to your question, what is really fun, and most recently, my team sent me a couple of new Cabernets that we were going to consider, and I had a Galentine's Day, which was perfect. So I have my girlfriends over, and my girlfriends just love it because I provide a lot of wine, and I just ask them. It's great because they're the target demographic, and so while they don't have, they always almost always will say, oh well, I don't have a sophisticated palate, but that's the point because they're the ones ultimately that will be shopping and buying, and so their feedback is really helpful. So we have these, I would say, super informal focus groups with friends tasting, but then we have the more formal analytical process, and both I think are important.
And maybe it'll be an annual tradition, the Galantines get together. And I'm assuming like every party or like housewarming, anything like that you're invited to, you're always the one having to bring the wine. I hope so.
I tend to be. I always come
You
with
tend
wine.
to be.
Yes, I never want to tell anybody, but I tend, I love to supply the wine as much as possible. So ship to the host or arming them in advance, shipping wine. We're in the season of life of anything from bachelorette parties to baby showers where you have wine there. So it's kind of like all these life events in between where you have there are lots of wine available. And so we love to find reasons to gift or supply them in advance. And it's for hosting, I have found over the years so awesome because I was definitely that host who would have like 6 bottles open because you want to offer everything to everybody. And then you're throwing away all this wine at the end of the night. And so I love when hosting. One of my girlfriends, for example, when they came at Galentine's, she actually said, you could see how this is like programmed in us. She said, oh, I'll just have whatever's open. And I looked at her. She was like, "Oh, that's right. You don't have full bottles. I can have any of these 5 varietals." And so we all kind of laughed because I think we all, when entering a party, you just say, "Oh, I'll have whatever's open." or the host opens up 7 different bottles so they have everything. And this way, if you have a beautiful ice bucket with 5 different varietals, everybody can actually drink what they want to drink, and you're not throwing away all this wine at the end of the night, which is really great.
Totally true. Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely an issue with me because when my girlfriend comes over, she's a white wine drinker. So she will
Yeah,
like open a bottle, take like 2 glasses, then it sits in my fridge for like a month. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to drink this. Then I end
okay,
up
Larry,
throwing
we
it
got
out. So
more
it's
wine.
a,
We're getting you more Wander and Ivy.
yeah. Yeah. So target husbands and boyfriends too.
Yeah,
There's a market for
I love
that. It would save me from buying full bottles. That or I'm just going to like Trader Joe's for like the $2 chuck or something,
it. That's the,
which he also
that
doesn't like. So
your classic example, Larry. We're gonna make sure that we
exactly.
get some white wine for her in single serve.
All right. Sounds good. So what's next for the brand? Do you want to continue? I mean, obviously expanding the varieties that you offer, but yeah, what's next for just for the brand? Is it more distribution? You mentioned hotels. Is it restaurants? Is it package stores? What is it that you want to have for the brand?
Continued growth for sure. We are currently in 28 states in stores. So think off premise. It's anything from your traditional liquor store to groceries like Whole Foods, Sprouts, Safeway, Albertsons, Kroger, shops like that, to on premise like restaurants by the glass, as well as hotels. I love the hotel side of the business. I think there's so much area of opportunity there because when you're traveling, whether it's for business or professional, I don't think anyone is opening up a very overpriced full bottle of wine. And all of those areas, really, right now, we're in, but we're, in my opinion, just scratching the surface across the country. So we truly have expanded exponentially since I founded the business, but there's so much room. This year is actually the first year where I not only printed, but framed my vision board to my left here. And so it includes some key partners that we're not in yet. Like, for example, we're in many retail partners, but we're not yet in Target. So getting where I know our target demographic is and expanding across the country is a major goal of ours. And also continuing to expand on the hotel side, like with the Marriotts and Hiltons, where we can be that beautiful wine in room and not only have something awesome for the guest, but also really move wine and bring additional sales to our hotel partners. But yeah, we have some really exciting state expansions. Like I said, we're not yet in every state. So growing to national distribution with both our on and off premise partners, some like dream partners where we're not yet in, that we will be in, and continuing to become a household name and really have consumers, more and more consumers across the country, know and fall in love with the brand.
Okay, so if it's not in your state, keep an eye out because it will be coming there, right?
That's true. We're coming.
Yeah. And so we've talked about everything, marriage, motherhood, entrepreneurship. So is there something that you like to do to just kind of get away from it all, relax, or any other hobbies or interests, when not working? And I know you mentioned you loved dance when you were younger. So do you still do that?
I I mean, moving my body is a priority every single day. I think because I dance and move my body since I was 3, and so as much as I would love to say I go to a dance class every day, it's not as accessible it with my life today. That being said, I prioritize moving my body every single day, and for me, like the fun of it while also self care of it is really important. I love Pilates classes. I'm a Peloton girl, moving my body, hiking, like those types of things, running are all things that I think are ways to take care of myself, but I also genuinely enjoy. I think I grew up enjoying moving my body. So it's a really good mental and physical escape for me for sure.
Okay. And just last question, what piece of advice would you give to somebody young who would want to follow in your footsteps in the entrepreneurship world, and start a company and pursue their passions like you did?
You know, I think it always feels like it's not the right time, that you like don't have enough, whether it's experience or you're not enough in some way to be able to take the leap. And I certainly felt that way, 8 years ago when I left my finance role. But I would encourage, and I do encourage entrepreneurs that I speak with, of really just being proud and leaning into what they are bringing to whatever they want to do, whatever kind of business they are. And they might not feel like they have all the skills and all the experiences, but I never built a company before, right? Like I didn't come from the wine space. There's a lot that I didn't have, and I could have, I think, made a lot of excuses as to why it wasn't the right time. I didn't have enough of X, Y, and Z, but I took the leap and I figured it out. And I think if you're a really smart, motivated individual with a passion behind what you're doing, you can get it done. And so I would just encourage everyone to not wait for any perfect time or perfect experience or skill set. And if you feel the calling to build something, then just go and build it.
All right. So you're saying just do it. Just
Yeah,
just do it. Take the
just
first
do it.
step, right?
I live at a Nike today. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like ideas are only good, if you act on them. You actually like, take the first step. Even if you fail, then I think you always learn something and can get back
Totally.
up and try something else.
Totally agree.
I think it's Mark Cuban always says you're just gonna be right once. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
same
right
thing.
one. Yeah. And
Only right once.
that's that's all you need. And all the stuff before it is lessons learned.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, well, Dana Spaulding, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. And best of luck to you and the brand and your career, and I look forward to following it and trying some of Wonder and Ivy.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.